Most people see a cracked, wobbling cabinet and think it's headed for the skip. But what if I told you the exact same cabinet you're about to throw away could be restored to better than new condition for less than the price of your weekly shop? Take a good look at the cabinet in front of me. The door's hanging off one hinge. There's a split running clean through one of the side panels. The finish has gone cloudy and tired, like it's spent 30 years under a bad conservatory window. Most people would look at this and see rubbish. I look at it and see a Saturday afternoon and about AO4 worth of materials. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this cabinet broke, how to properly inspect the damage before you touch a single tool, and the full step-by-step restoration process I use to bring pieces like this back to life. Stick around, because the transformation at the end of this one genuinely surprised even me. Before we start fixing anything, it's worth understanding why this happens. Wood furniture doesn't just fail for no reason. There's always a cause, and once you understand it, you'll spot the warning signs on your own furniture long before it gets to this state. Cabinets take a beating in ways people don't think about. Every time a door slams shut, the hinges take a small shock. Over months and years, that shock loosens the screws in the surrounding wood. Add central heating, which dries the air out and shrinks timber unevenly, and you get joints that pull apart ever so slightly. Once a joint has a tiny gap, it starts to move, and wood that moves is wood that eventually cracks. Splits like the one on this side panel are almost always caused by one of three things: rapid changes in humidity, furniture being dragged rather than lifted, or simply age catching up with old, dried-out glue. This piece has probably lived through a few decades of central heating switching on and off, and that constant expanding and contracting has finally taken its toll. Now, most people's instinct when they see this kind of damage is to replace the whole cabinet. I understand why. A trip to a flat-pack furniture shop feels quicker and less intimidating than picking up a chisel. But here's the thing, a cabinet like this was built from solid timber, properly joined, at a time when furniture was made to last a lifetime. You simply cannot buy that quality new anymore without spending hundreds of pounds. Restoration isn't just cheaper. In cases like this, it's the only way to get furniture of this quality back into your home. This is the step most people skip, and it's the reason so many DIY repairs fail within a few months. You need to know exactly what you're dealing with before you start mixing glue or reaching for sandpaper. I always start with my hands, not my eyes. Run your fingers along every joint and every panel. You're feeling for movement, softness, and anything that shouldn't shift when you press it. Cracks and splits. Look at the direction the crack runs. If it follows the grain of the wood, it's usually a clean, repairable split. If it runs across the grain, that's a sign of deeper stress and may need reinforcing rather than just gluing. Loose joints. Grab the cabinet frame and gently rock it. Any wobble at all tells you the joint has failed. You'll often hear a faint creak or even a soft knock as the old glue crumbles inside. Missing wood. Sometimes chips or small sections have broken off completely and gone missing over the years. Don't panic. Idolo. This is one of the easiest fixes with the right filler or a small offcut of matching timber. Water damage. This shows up as dark staining, a slightly swollen texture, or a finish that's gone cloudy and lifted. Press the area gently. If it feels soft or spongy, the water has gone deeper than the surface, and you may be dealing with early rot. Paint or finish damage. Flaking, peeling, or a chalky white residue on the surface usually means the old finish has broken down and lost its ability to protect the wood underneath. Rot. This is the one repair I always tell people to take seriously. Press a screwdriver gently into the suspect area. If it sinks in with little resistance or the wood crumbles rather than splinters, you're dealing with rot, and that section will need to be cut out and replaced rather than glued. Scratches. These are cosmetic almost every time. Shallow scratches sit only in the finish layer, not the wood itself, and they're some of the easiest repairs on this entire list. Broken legs. Check whether the break is a clean snap along the grain or a crushed, splintered fracture. Clean breaks glue back together beautifully. Splintered breaks usually need a supporting dowel for real strength. Loose glue joints. Old hide glue and PVA both become brittle with age. If you can see a fine white or yellow crust in a joint, that's failed glue, and it needs to be fully removed before any new glue will bond properly. On our cabinet today, we've got a split side panel following the grain, one badly loosened hinge joint, a scattering of surface scratches across the top, and a finish that's gone dull and slightly cloudy from years of sunlight. Nothing here is beyond saving. In fact, this is a fairly typical combination of damage for a piece this age. Right, let's get into the actual work. I'll walk you through every stage in the order I do it, and I'll explain exactly which tools and materials I'm reaching for at each point. Before you repair anything, the entire piece needs a proper clean. Years of dust, wax buildup, and general grime hide the true condition of the wood underneath, and they'll stop your new glue and finish from bonding properly later on. I use a soft cloth dampened with warm water and a small amount of mild washing up liquid. Nothing harsh, nothing chemical at this stage. Wipe with the grain, never against it, and dry the surface immediately afterwards with a clean cloth. Never let water sit on bare or damaged wood, especially near any crack or split, because it will seep in and make the repair harder later. Once the piece is clean and completely dry, it's time to strip back the old finish around the damaged areas. You don't always need to strip the entire cabinet, often just the sections you're repairing. For this, I'm using a chemical-free citrus-based stripper, applied with an old paintbrush and left to sit for the time stated on the tin, usually around 15 to 20 minutes. Once it's bubbled up, I scrape it away gently with a plastic scraper. Plastic, not metal, because metal scrapers can gouge softened wood and leave marks you'll regret later. Safety tip: always work in a well-ventilated space when stripping finish, and wear gloves. Even the gentler citrus-based strippers can irritate skin with prolonged contact. Sanding is where a lot of restorations either come together or fall apart, and it's almost always down to grit choice. Start too fine, and you'll never remove the old finish properly. Start too coarse, and you'll leave scratches that show through your new finish. My approach: 120 grit first to remove the remaining old finish and level any rough patches, then 180 grit to smooth things further, and finally 220 grit for that silky smooth surface ready for staining. Always sand with the grain, never in circles, and use a sanding block rather than just your fingers so you keep an even, flat surface. For the scratches we found earlier, this stage alone will remove almost all of them, since they only sat in the finish layer. Now for the split panel. This is genuinely one of the most satisfying repairs in furniture restoration, because a well-done crack repair becomes almost invisible. First, I gently work wood glue into the crack using a thin palette knife, working it as deep into the split as I can manage. Then I use sash clamps, padded with a scrap of wood on each side to protect the surface, and clamp the crack fully closed. Wipe away any glue that squeezes out immediately with a damp cloth. E os aduro vuestro. Dried glue won't take stain, and you'll end up with a pale line running through your finished piece. Leave this clamped for a minimum of 24 hours. I know it's tempting to rush this part, but wood glue needs proper curing time to reach full strength, and unclamping early is one of the most common mistakes I see. For the missing chip of wood and any remaining small gaps, I reach for either wood filler or epoxy, depending on the situation. Wood filler is perfect for small, shallow gaps that won't take much structural stress, things like nail holes, minor chips, or surface-level dents. It's quick, easy to sand, and takes stain reasonably well if you choose a filler close to your wood tone. Epoxy, on the other hand, is the better choice when the gap is structural, when it needs real strength, or when it's exposed to moisture. I always reach for a 2-part wood epoxy on any repair involving a joint, a load-bearing section, or a chip near an edge that will take knocks. It's more expensive and takes longer to work with, but it bonds far stronger than standard filler and won't shrink or crack over time the way cheaper fillers sometimes do. For our loosened hinge joint, the old glue needs to come out completely before anything new goes in. I use a small flathead screwdriver to gently scrape out the crumbling old glue, then a vacuum brush attachment to clear out the dust. Fresh wood glue goes into the joint, worked in with a small brush to make sure it reaches every surface. Then the joint gets clamped and left to cure fully, exactly the same way as the crack repair. Rushing a joint repair is the single biggest reason DIY furniture fixes fail within a few months, au revoir. The glue simply never reaches full strength before the piece goes back into daily use. If you come across a section that's beyond saving au revoir, usually where there's genuine rot rather than just surface damage, au revoir, this is where you cut out the affected area entirely and replace it with a matching offcut, glued and clamped in exactly the same way. On today's cabinet, thankfully, we didn't need to go this far, but it's worth knowing this option exists, rather than assuming a rotten section means the whole piece is finished. Once every repair has fully cured and been sanded smooth and flush, it's time to bring the color back. I always test stain on a hidden section first. The inside of a door or the underside of a shelf, because wood absorbs stain differently depending on its age and grain pattern, and you don't want any surprises on a visible surface. Apply stain with a clean cloth or brush, working with the grain, and wipe away the excess after a few minutes rather than letting it pool. Multiple thin coats will always give you a more even, professional result than one thick coat. Once the stain has fully dried, the piece needs a protective seal. This is what actually protects the wood going forward, rather than just improving its appearance. I'll cover which finish to choose in the expert tips section coming up, but the application method stays the same regardless. Thin, even coats, lightly sanded between each layer with a fine 320 grit paper to remove any dust particles or brush marks. The last step is a final buff with a soft cloth, sometimes finished with a small amount of furniture wax for extra shine and protection. This is the moment a restoration really comes together. Azu. The point where a piece that looked ready for the skip starts to look like something you'd be proud to display. Before we move on, a quick word on the mistakes that trip up most beginners. Rushing the clamping time is the biggest one. Glue needs its full curing window, not just until it feels dry to the touch. Using far too much glue is another. A thin, even layer bonds better than a thick, gloopy one, and excess glue squeezing out just means more cleanup and a higher chance of it blocking stain absorption later. Skipping the test patch for stain catches out a huge number of people, especially on older timber, where the wood can absorb color very differently from what you'd expect. And finally, sanding against the grain. It might feel like it's working faster, but it leaves scratches that become far more obvious once stain is applied, because the stain settles into those scratches and highlights every single one. Preventing future damage comes down mostly to environment. Keep furniture away from direct radiators and out of direct sunlight where possible, since both accelerate the drying and fading process that leads to exactly the kind of damage we fix today. Choosing the right wood glue. But matters more than people think. A standard PVA wood glue is perfectly fine for most interior furniture repairs, but for anything that will face damp conditions, such as a piece kept in a conservatory or near a kitchen sink, a waterproof PVA is worth the small extra cost. Epoxy versus filler. Well, as a rule of thumb, if the repair needs to bear weight or sit somewhere it'll take regular knocks, go with epoxy. If it's purely cosmetic, filler will do the job and save you money. Sanding grit progression. Should always move from coarse to fine, gao brao. I'd suggest 120, then 180, then 220 as a solid standard progression for most furniture restoration work, finishing with 320 if you're applying a film finish like varnish. Best wood finishes depend on how the piece will be used. Danish oil gives a lovely natural look and is easy to maintain, but offers less protection. A hard wax oil sits in between, giving good protection with a more natural feel than varnish. And a proper varnish or lacquer gives maximum protection, which is worth considering for anything that'll see heavy daily use, like a kitchen cabinet or a hallway table. Indoor versus outdoor furniture care. Is worth mentioning too, outdoor pieces need a finish specifically rated for exterior use, reapplied roughly once a year because standard interior finishes simply won't cope with rain and UV exposure over time. Take a moment to picture where we started. A cabinet with a door barely hanging on, a crack running down the side panel, scratches scattered across the top, and a finish so dull it had lost all its character. Now picture it after everything we've just walked through. The crack has vanished, hidden inside a joint that's now stronger than it was when the cabinet was first built. The hinge sits firm and swings smoothly, no wobble left at all. The scratches are gone entirely, sanded away and replaced with a smooth, even surface. And the color has come right back to life. What was once a tired, cloudy finish is now a rich, warm tone that catches the light properly again, the way it would have looked the day it was first made. This is exactly why I do this. Watching a piece that felt finished, that felt like rubbish, come back to genuine, lasting life. It's not magic. It's not some hidden trick nobody's told you about. It's patience, the right materials, and following the process properly, in order, without skipping the steps that feel tedious. So there you have it. A genuinely broken cabinet, brought back from what most people would have written off. For the cost of a bit of glue, some filler, and a few sheets of sandpaper. No expensive tools, no specialist workshop, just patience and a proper process followed in the right order. If you've got a piece sitting in your shed or garage right now that you assumed was beyond saving, I'd genuinely encourage you to take a proper look at it, using the inspection steps we covered today. You might be surprised at just how repairable it actually is. If you enjoy seeing old furniture brought back to life, subscribe to Timbermaster UK for more restoration projects every week.